welcome, I will not say everybody here on the spot, because you are the non-Spanish and non-Italians participants of the summer school, and most of the participants, because of the football match, are online because they want to be on time at 9 o'clock before their television. So I salute. Ah, oh. Then either you hate football. Ah, excellent. So thanks a lot. Actually, you are so solidarity with the poor Belgian than I am after our defeat in front of Italy. So I salute all the participants online, a lot for tonight. And we start immediately this debate about legal migration, but actually we will have a special focus on one of the last instruments that has been adopted regarding legal migration, the new Blue Card Directive that will replace the 2009 first Blue Card Directive, which is the tool that has recently been adopted in order to facilitate and accelerate the admission of highly skilled migrants. We have therefore tonight 4 speakers, and we are really lucky to have a very diverse panel. We will start first with Silvio GRIECO. You can understand that he's also Italian. And he will speak, what a coincidence, online to explain actually the point of view of the Commission. The Commission had put forward the proposal for the new Blue Card in 2016. So it took 5 years before this proposal was adopted. And afterwards, we will hear the position of the 2 other institutions. On my right, I have Mrs. Duchâteau from the European Parliament, actually more precisely from the Secretariat of the Libe committee. All the MEPs are, of course, in Strasbourg for the plenary session, and they don't follow the football match, of course, because they are all too busy. And Mrs. Duchâteau had a real opportunity to observe the negotiations within and with the Council in the Parliament, because she, from the inside, assisted the members of the Libe committee, and in particular the rapporteur, and she will be able to tell us what are the views of the European Parliament. And then we have Mrs. Ska Carvalho, who was also an actor of the adoption of the Blue Card, because at that moment she was detached and she was working with the Portuguese Presidency. And she was the official of the Portuguese Presidency in charge, the expert in charge of helping the member states to negotiate with the European Parliament the new directive. And then finally, after the 3 institutions, we have Jo ANTOONS, who is a practitioner. And she is a member of the lawyer's office Fragomen, which is an enormous cabinet of lawyers, and she is specialized in labor migration, but of course she will give us the point of view of a practitioner. She is also helping companies and migrants to get a permit in order to work in the European Union, and especially highly skilled workers. She will tell us from her point of view to which extent this directive has an added value and will ease the admission of highly skilled migrants. So I don't go further, and I ask Silvio GRIECO to tell us from the point of view of the Commission to which extent he is satisfied or on some points disappointed by the new directive. Our idea is that all of you, the four of you, would make a statement of 10 minutes, so be precise and go straight to the point, in order to allow us to have a debate with the audience. Please, Silvio.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Philippe, for this introduction and for the invitation. Actually, I could not wait to get out of my place to have a final real meeting, real conference. But okay, today it's a special day, so I apologize again, and thanks for giving me this opportunity of joining from home. I will, as you ask, I will try to give you in 10 minutes the position of the Commission on this revised Blue Card Directive. But I would like to give a bit of historical context, especially for those students and people connected who don't have this historical background. So the Commission, the European Commission, proposed the revision of the EU Blue Card Directive in 2016. So really 5 years ago, which means it took basically 5 years after the proposal of the Commission to have the directive eventually formally adopted. But in 2016, we all remember the historical context. There was happening the so-called refugee crisis. So from 2015, because mostly from the war in Syria, there was this big influx of asylum seekers to Europe through Greece. We remember that particular period, and that was the period where the Commission put forward its new agenda on migration. But this agenda on migration was focused to address this refugee crisis and in general to reform the common asylum policy, because it was, we thought at the time, that definitely one of the reasons why we had this crisis was also because of the issues in the asylum acquis, in the asylum legislation. But it was this agenda on migration of 2016 was not only about asylum. There was also this part on legal migration, and that was so the proposal for a blue card directive, which was, let's say, the normal part of that agenda, not the one addressing a crisis, but the proposal addressing the future challenges of Europe. And one of the main challenges that we had in 2016, and we still have, is this one of attracting talents from outside the EU, in this case, highly qualified, highly skilled workers. We had already a blue card directive, which was adopted in 2009, but there were many issues with this directive, basically not enough numbers, not enough blue cards issued by member states, because conditions to get the EU blue card were and still are too difficult to meet. There is a high salary thresholds. It's not very inclusive. The intra-EU mobility rights are not very effective. So this is why the Commission put forward this proposal, addressing all these main issues that I just said. First of all, there was in the Commission proposal the abolition of parallel national schemes, because we saw and we still see that the EU blue card, so the EU scheme, is not used in all member states. Actually, it's mostly used in one member state, which is Germany, and many other member states, they use their own national parallel schemes. So there was the abolition of these parallel national schemes in the Commission proposal. There was another important element that was the inclusion of skilled workers to as eligible person to apply for the blue card directive. So meaning that people in the proposal could apply not only with a diploma, but also with relevant professional experience, which should be equivalent to higher education. Again, to make the instrument more inclusive. And the other main element was to promote the intra-EU mobility, so to make it really easier for a new blue card holder in one member state to move and work in other member states. Now, what happened after almost 5 years of negotiations. We have a compromise text that was agreed by the European Parliament and the Council on 17th of May, and Céline and Alexandra will tell you more about that, in particular about the positions of the two co-legislators. But from the Commission perspective, the main question is how does this compromise text, how does this new approved directive look like in comparison with the proposal. Definitely, it is not as ambitious as it was in the Commission proposal, but that's quite of a normal landing zone when it comes to negotiations of directives and EU legislation in general, but in particular when it comes to negotiation of legislation on migration, because positions are different, positions across the different political parties in the parliament are different. Even more different are the positions across the different member states. So a compromise is always needed, a compromise, so something in between. But we can say that, and it's not only me saying this, I mean, I am a policy officer who supported the negotiation of this directive, but it's the Commission that says that, and the Commissioner for Home Affairs that said that once the agreement was reached. So the Commission is officially satisfied of this compromise. Many of the improvements that were in the Commission proposal are in the text. We have not managed to fully harmonize the residence permits for highly qualified, highly skilled people, but we have introduced a level playing field mechanism, which in our view would make the national permits probably redundant and not necessary. We have managed to include the professional skills in the ICT sector, so it will not be possible for third country nationals to apply for a blue card with a professional experience in any sector of the economy, but it will be in the most important sector when it comes to the needs of the European labor market, which is the ICT, the information and communication technology sector. And we have managed to have that in the new directive. So the second big improvement. The third big improvement is on intra-EU mobility. So now in the current directive from 2009, it's quite difficult for EU blue card holders to move and work to other member states. It's almost like applying from outside the EU. So the real added value of having a blue card in one member state when a person wants to apply for a blue card in a second member state is not there. We have introduced a facilitation, many rules to facilitate this intra-EU mobility in the new revised directive. People will be able to start working at the latest 30 days after the application, and this we believe it's very important for the blue card applicants, but also for the employers who know that after they offer a job to a third country nationals, they would not have to wait forever until a decision of the administration, but only 30 days, and then the person can start working. These are the main elements of improvements that we see that are in the new EU blue card. Now, of course, the directive should be formally adopted in September. There will be 2 years for the member states to transpose the directives, and as Commission will definitely help and support the member states in the transposition and also in the implementation and in the promotion of the EU blue card, because one of the main issues for the underuse of this instrument is also the lack of awareness from the side of employers, from the side of third country nationals. So let's say it's only the first step, the political agreement and the formal adoption of the directive. We will definitely, as Commission, support the member states and work together with the other stakeholders, of course, including businesses, legal practitioners, in making really a difference in practice and having the EU attracting more talents and more highly qualified and highly skilled workers.
Thank you, Silvio. It's quite rare that a speaker, in particular, an Italian one, is not using all the time that he has. Maybe you are in a certain hurry today. Let's now, after having heard about the position of the Commission, turn to Mrs. Carvalho. Could you tell us what actually was being the ambience in the Council? Were the negotiations difficult with the European Parliament? Were the member states, did the member states find something problematic with the Commission proposal? Well, we would be happy to hear about all those elements, so please take the floor.
Thank you, Philippe. The Council here was, I would say, reluctant. The Council in general, member states, and most of them are. Okay, can I take out?
Yes, of course.
No? Sorry. Member states are very reluctant to change the legal migration framework currently. There were three directives that were approved up to 2016, which meant that member states had to do a big effort to implement these rules, to adapt their systems. And so the appetite is not there for changing legal migration framework. Blue card could be, if you think, an easy one that could attract a bit of more interest from member states. We are attracting people that our economies need, that can come here, solve problems of shortages, or they come here and work a while and then they probably can create their business and contribute to the EU economy, to our competitiveness. So we could expect a bit more lenient perspective of member states for this directive, but in fact, as Silvio said, the fact was not, this was not the case in fact. There was also reluctance on revising the blue card for different aspects. We went for this negotiation first to the German colleagues in the end of last year, and then the Portuguese presidency. We went to negotiation without strong advocates among member states to have this revision, which means that we don't have, you know, a support group there to push for the changes. Why is this? First of all, some member states have what we could say, and you don't quote me, I'm speaking here absolutely personal way. Some member states have an ideological position on this. I can mention some, but you think about the border of Switzerland to the east, and some member states that have really dynamic economies and that need people and that have shortages, they still resist very much any measure that can be seen as a facilitation of migration and of people coming to these countries. And not to speak about the Visegrad countries, which has this position in general, as you know. Other member states have what we can say a legitimate worry that they had well-functioning national schemes to attract highly qualified workers, and they were a bit afraid that these schemes would lose their interest if they had to apply only the blue card, or even if they have only to adapt their national schemes to this one. They would lose the flexibilities, they would have rules that are difficult to revise and to change, and so they were not very supportive either. There are other countries that, and another thing, this issue of the parallel schemes that Silvio also mentioned, We have also to remember that even stakeholders, and then Fragomen will mention it probably also, were not also very supportive of this blue card only scheme in the EU. And finally, there were member states that had also legitimate worries about their labor market and the idea that they cannot control, hundreds or thousands of people arriving asking for blue cards in their territories, and because they have high unemployment, or because they are losing their people, their own people. You can think about Bulgaria or Romania, countries that are really under pressure of people leaving. They were not very supportive either of having a very flexible or very ambitious scheme. So this was more or less the situation. So the Council did not have a strong advocate. Spain was very supportive of the proposal of the Commission, and very reluctant to not to have this ambitious project. Luxembourg also, but then we were really in a situation with not many strong advocates. The issue, this resistance regarding the parallel schemes, was solved with the pact and with the decision of the Commission in the pact not to insist on having this only a single scheme for highly qualified people. And so we had the possibility, first the Germans in their last half of their presidency, and then the Portuguese presidency, to progress in this negotiation. So what was the position of the presidents? Very shortly, so Portugal is a country with a very flexible migration system. Very much open to, for instance, to flexible regularization of people that come in even in irregular ways. It has a long tradition of emigration, so let's say an acceptance of people in general that migration is part of our lives. Everybody has a migrant, somebody who migrated to Germany or to the US or to Venezuela. So it's not a country where these populist these populist parties have a lot of support. For the moment, they can change, and so in principle would be a flexible member states. Regarding the blue card, it had the same line as Spain, so it was aligned with the Commission position. So now I'm speaking about the position of the country and not of the presidency. However, it has a weak position because it does not issue a lot of blue cards. The other scheme, the national schemes, are more relevant in this case. So it is not a country like Germany. When Germany speaks, everybody listens because they have the experience and they have the numbers on their side. On the other side, Portugal has currently a government that we can call left-leaning, so a socialist party government supported by the Communist Party and what we call the left bloc, so the non-communists, but other left, really left, hard left, so they support the government in parliament. So it's tricky to push, for instance, for very elitist schemes. So the main political discourse is for vulnerable people, attracting people, regularizing them, the weak ones, and the people that need protection. As presidency, the presidency had the intention to close as many files as possible, and Blue Card fell into it. We understood quickly that for the other proposals of the pact, so the ones related to asylum, the progress would not be extraordinary, although there was a huge investment in resources to advance on the technical discussions. And in the end, the presidency, in the last day of the presidency, could obtain the support of COREPER for the new regulation on the European Agency on Asylum, but still the blue card was, let's say, the lower hanging fruit for having a result of this presidency. And I think that the other, I will not speak about the other institutions, but there was the idea that the presidencies that would follow would probably not invest as much in this area of policy. So there was a bit of the idea from everybody that there was a momentum to close this, and anyway, 5 years is more than enough to negotiate it. However, just to say, for COREPER 2, this was not the main priority. I would say the main priority for the presidency was the recovery package, so the financial framework and the social files with the social summit, etc. But well, there was quite a lot of support to progress here. So what we found in January, several points of the technical points were already closed since 2017-2018. Germany had advanced both politically and technically in the process. They had prepared the ground for the member states to give a bit space to get some compromises on more difficult issues like skills, the level playing field in the national schemes, mobility and employment, labor market testing, but there were several issues that had not been discussed and that were difficult to discuss with member states, sometimes surprisingly, even for us. But in the end, I think that we could get good results here, and we could put on the table, for instance, the issue of scope to include the refugees in the scope and the seasonal workers. We could get an agreement for people that are unemployment to stay for 1 year in the territory without losing their permit. We also got to have agreement on salary thresholds, etc. I'll not get into detail, I can answer the questions. So how did we get this agreement? I think I have 2 minutes. So first, we respected member states' concerns, and we got their confidence, because we could not be seen as aligned with the Commission or the Parliament here, so we would have to respect member states' concerns. As I said, some of them are quite legitimate, some are a bit ideological. So let's put it like this: member states' concerns on security and health, so controlling people who come into their territories on grounds, so to verify that they don't import a security issue, on maintaining a sense of control of their borders if they need so, for instance, via labor market tests, and so that they can adapt to the labor market situation, and also a series of safeguards for the member states to feel more confident that in first entry and then in moments of mobility, they could control abuse and, for instance, react to lack of resources of persons or their dependence on social security. However, we kept several principles. First, technically, to be as simple as possible in legal terms, so avoiding as a maximum the may clauses, the as appropriate clauses. Also, invest on simplifying the procedural aspects for blue card applicants and their employers, and also for their family. So limited times for dealing with the applications, access to labor market, etc. Increase the security of blue card holders and their families in terms, for instance, of safeguards in cases of unemployment or invalidity. Make the scheme more ambitious, inclusive and attractive, as Silvio mentioned, and keep it acceptable for the European Parliament and the European Commission. So going quite further than the Council mandate. In fact, we, in most points of the Council mandate, we approximated the positions of the Council to the EP and the Commission. Thank you, Philippe, and sorry.
Thanks a lot. Interesting to notice that despite it is about highly skilled workers, it was very difficult apparently in the Council. And as you said, this shows the reluctance of member states to accept to harmonize legal migration policies. Let me now turn to Ève du Château in order to know the ambience in the parliament, which was probably totally different or quite different, also because it's not about national representation of states, but it is a game between political groups without a national division. And it will be interesting also to know if the negotiations actually with the Council were difficult because of the restrictive position of the Council. Thank you very much in advance for your contribution.
Thank you, Philippe. Just one remark. My name is Céline Château, not du Château, but we lost it somewhere, the particle. I wanted to start with a disclaimer, but Philippe already touched upon it. So obviously I'm not a politician. The MEPs are busy in Strasbourg, indeed. I'm part of the Libe Secretariat, which is there to support the members of parliament in their work. So I will try to speak about the position of the parliament as adopted, supported by majorities. I'll try to refrain from personal comments, but I will stress them if I make some on the way. I've been an observer of the whole negotiations. It's been a long process. It's been said by my colleagues from Commission and Council. What you have to realize also is that all the actors have been changing on the way. I mean, the commissioners have changed, the rapporteurs have changed. We started with a rapporteur from the UK, Claude Moraes, very experienced MEP who had been rapporteur also for a lot of other texts, but mainly in the field, the Seasonal Workers Directive. But he had to leave the parliament with the Brexit, and he's been replaced by Javier Moreno Sanchez in 2020. So also also experienced MEP, also from the Socialist Party, but this also has to be taken into account. So I had the chance the opportunity to see the whole process. So I will perhaps go a bit more backwards to give the context, and my colleagues have already stressed a few things. Silvio recalled the context in 2016, so that was the huge arrivals of asylum seekers. The Commission published then the new agenda on migration, which indeed included 4 pillars. One of those strong pillars was to be legal migration, but all along those last years, in fact, in terms of legal migration, the only text that was proposed and that was put on the table for the legislators was that text on the blue card for highly skilled, which was supposed indeed to be an easy one because targeting educated third country nationals that are supposed to be easier to integrate in the society in the EU. But in the end, it was not that easy at all. So we started with a quite ambitious mandate, which was adopted in June 2017 with quite a broad majority. At the time, I went back to look at the figures because I forgot in the meantime, but we had a majority of 45 against 10 in the Libe committee, which was quite good. So with EPP, SND, the Greens, the centrists at the time, which were not called Renew, but ALDE, and so on. So quite a strong position, close to the Commission's proposal. So in the beginning of the negotiations, in fact, when they opened in 2017, we were very much on the same line with a bit more progressive position for the Parliament, but on the main point at the time, which was the question of harmonization and not keeping parallel national schemes, the Commission and the Parliament were very much on the same line. yeah, the main issues for the Parliament then, so that was that question of harmonization, that was the question of skills. So it was important to not just take into account qualifications, diplomas, but also professional experience. And also a very important point was to enlarge the scope of the instrument to include beneficiaries of international protection, which was in the Commission proposal, but also asylum seekers. The Parliament very much wanted to make use of people who were already on the territory of the EU, people who have skills, who may be there for other reasons, but who could also benefit from this more advantageous scheme. But then all started well. We had 3 trilogues under the Estonian presidency, and then the Estonians tried to make a deal, and so we advanced on those 3 main issues: so harmonization, skills, and scope. But then they got blocked in Coreper, and so the question then was what to do. At the time, the rapporteur, supported by the whole negotiation team, decided not to give in and to be firm, to remain firm, because this was the only text on legal migration. So we wanted to get a good result out of this revision, and he insisted a lot on having a meaningful revision with real added value. So then the whole thing got blocked for almost 3 years, 2 years, well, a bit more than 2 years. Alexandra said that it was solved with the pact. I would see it a bit differently. I mean, it's of course this unlocked the matter and the negotiations, but then the Parliament got left alone with its position on harmonization, because we were quite firm on that, also because in the impact assessment that led to the revision, to the proposal of the revision, the fact of having parallel national schemes next to the EU scheme was seen as the main reason for the lack of success of that EU residence permit, and that explains a bit the fact that it was not used at all in the member states. So then it was complicated to see the revision as meaningful if there was, well, if we were keeping those national schemes. Then the change of position of the Commission that then got more allied to the Council than to the Parliament. It was also accompanied by a change in the rapporteurship. So I mentioned that. Not that the mandate changed, but it's true that it probably played a role to have also a new rapporteur to start a new dynamic. That's more of a personal comment here. I said I would stress them. So the new rapporteur stressed some new elements, which were the need to communicate more on the EU scheme. What was important also was that question of awareness raising of the existence of that scheme, including within companies, applicants and companies, and also it was important to take that point of view of companies to make recruitment easier, to also to show to member states that the point was not just to help third country nationals to come, but also to help the economy and have companies have their lives easier to recruit the skills and the qualifications that they need. I'm not looking at the time, and I usually speak too much, so I'm going to be 2 minutes. Okay, so I'll go to the end. So there was this turning point with the new pact, and then so the Parliament had to come up with realities, with the political reality. The choice was either not to have any revision at all of the directive, or to accept the fact that in fact there was no appetite amongst member states to revise the directive altogether, and certainly not to drop the national schemes. So in the end, we decided to go ahead with the momentum, to take the opportunity to still make some little steps, and that's a policy that has been followed actually on legal migration text throughout the years, from the moment when it became clear that there wouldn't be a broad horizontal legal migration instrument for the EU. So since we started to work on some sectorial instruments, then it's been decided to go for, you know, little steps, better than nothing. So in the end, there is no harmonization in terms of national skills versus EU scheme, but still for the people, for the third country nationals, this what we got out of it is still satisfactory in a way, because if the member states get better provisions in their national schemes, then blue card holders have also to benefit from those better conditions. And then there are lots of provisions that can be seen as small, but for instance, the scheme facilitates the arrival of the family, the possibility for partners to work. Mobility, intra-EU mobility is also facilitated. So in that respect, we're quite happy with the result, in the sense that it will facilitate the lives of third country nationals who want to come. It will facilitate, I mean, compared to the current directive, it will facilitate the lives of companies, although the next speaker will say it better than I could, I guess. But our feeling is that it will be easier for companies to attract highly skilled and highly qualified migrants. On skills, here again, it's not a big victory, because we didn't manage to convince member states to really regard professional experience as equal to diplomas and education qualification. But still, we regard this small step as a beginning. What we imposed is that the Commission has to review the list of areas and the list of professions that can benefit from this equivalence, and it has to be reviewed every 2 years. So we hope that this will be a first step towards an extension. Finally, why it was good to conclude. I mean, this is my personal view, but also obviously the view that the Parliament took, because they adopted the position and the rapporteur got support. It's because it's important to keep legal migration on the agenda of legislation, of EU legislation, and on the legislative table. There is a movement to kind of mix asylum and legal migration. The Commission and the Council are talking more and more about legal pathways, and they include there also resettlement, humanitarian admissions, and that's a bit to the detriment of labor migration. So the Parliament is still pushing to make sure that this remains on the table. We are preparing a legislative own initiative report in that respect to make sure that this does not get forgotten, and we can continue with those little steps, hopefully one day a bit bigger ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Château. We heard now about the institutional game, the position of actually the three institutions. And as you already mentioned, now it would be interesting to listen to a practitioner. You probably do not care that much about this institutional game. You look at the result, and indeed, will it facilitate the recruitment of highly skilled migrants? What is, from your point of view, the added value?
Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, good evening, everyone. So indeed, I will keep it short and mainly from the business perspective. Let me first say that equally, Fragomen as a law firm has worked hard towards, I would say, the final adoption of the revised blue card scheme. it was clear, and it was already said, there were a lot of shortcomings in the previous EU Blue Card scheme, especially when you look at it from a business perspective. And the shortcomings, I can name the three of them, the most important ones. It's the limited set of associated rights for the worker. Secondly, a limited ability to attract and employ young talent through the EU Blue Card scheme. And then finally, what has been said several times already, the competition with the national parallel schemes. And this is very important because people often don't realize if you're an employer and you want to hire a foreign national, and you can have that individual on the ground in 2 weeks compared to 3 months, what was exactly the case with the EU Blue Card scheme, then of course employers will go for the national parallel scheme, as that parallel scheme in a lot of member states provided more favorable, I would say, procedural safeguards, for example, in terms of processing times, the fact that if employers were recognized by the government, were recognized sponsors, that they could obtain even work authorizations in a shorter period of time or with less documents, or that the eligibility conditions like salary thresholds, that was already said as well, were lower, okay? Why should you pay someone more if that is not, in the end, your HR policy, but only, I would say, set forward to obtain a work authorization? So these were, I would say, shortcomings that made that when we gave the option to employers, do you go for the EU Blue Card scheme or the national parallel scheme, that often you had to say the national parallel scheme plays more into your cards than the EU Blue Card scheme. Now we see that all those shortcomings have been addressed in the new, I would say, revised EU Blue Card. However, the question remains whether that revision will then in the end be what is being put forward as really the effective and flexible tool to attract and retain talent. Will Europe be, I would say, the destination of choice, because that's what it's all about, the destination of choice for that talent? Now, what is important, first of all, with respect to the parallel schemes, indeed, what has been said, we have always been in favor for, I would say, the existence of national parallel schemes next to the EU Blue Card scheme. The more, I would say, if you want to attract talent and retain talent, the more immigration routes, door openers that you have, the better it is to get the talent on the ground. And especially if you talk about an EU scheme, that EU scheme is often, I mean, given the variances between the national schemes, it's often not, I would say, that flexible of what you see in national schemes, okay? Now, in that sense, I really like the compromise that has been made, especially when it comes to the procedural aspects, that the EU Blue Card scheme, and that they create a level playing field between the EU Blue Card scheme and the national parallel scheme. I think that's a very smart, I would say, compromise text. Another aspect that I think it's really good as well is, as was already said, the access to information and the fact that member states also need, to some extent, promote that EU Blue Card scheme. You saw in a lot of member states that they even didn't mention it on their website. When you called the diplomatic post, they didn't even know what that card was about. They were not able to issue the relevant visa. So the awareness, what was not existent. So that with the new clauses in the directive will change. Another thing that I really liked as well is that member states are required to inform the European Commission on a yearly basis on some variances. I mean, like the salary thresholds, like the volumes that they will apply. That enables you at least also to check a little bit where are things going, and hopefully that could at some point in time as well get a little bit more, I would say, amongst the member states, it's similar or positions that go in the same direction. What is, I would say, still problematic, it's the salary thresholds, okay? The salary thresholds have been lowered, okay, from at least 1.5 to between 1.0 and 1.6, but it's unfortunate, and I understand that this is all compromise, and when you want to have the intra-EU mobility in the scheme, that you need to take a decision, but it would be a nice thing to have that also the salary thresholds would be equivalent to what you have in the national schemes. Secondly, of course, the fact that there is a lower salary threshold for young graduates of 80%, but that's a May clause. And this is also unfortunate because that was something that we see, especially now that you have with the Students and Researchers Directive, that you have the search here that foreign students in the end, you know, can remain in the EU to search for a job. And you often see that you don't have an immigration route to employ them within a certain jurisdiction because the salary thresholds are too high compared to what companies have as a reasonable, I would say, HR policy. And another point that I want to raise is of course, the professional skills. We were in favor that at least professional skills were compulsory, assimilated to higher educational qualifications. And of course, we understand that this is the first step and that it's good that at least already there has been taken a sectoral approach that the ICT professionals and managers with their experience could be considered as well as highly qualified for an EU blue card, provided that they have built up the necessary experience over three years. Now, the problem is, of course, that if you see in the Netherlands that people that meet the salary threshold can obtain the highly skilled migrant, then you see still that the fact that all those aspects in the end have not been assimilated, that the national schemes will still be, you know, compete with EU blue cards, despite, I would say, the level playing field in terms of the procedural aspects, which is very, very important. So I want to stress this again. With respect to the rights I mean, there have been a lot of additional rights for EU blue card holders, but of course, again, very important is that the rights that an EU blue card holder has, that they are, I mean, that at least those rights go further than what the rights of the national permit can provide. And that's the intra-EU mobility. That's not a national permit can never provide you with intra-EU mobility. So that's, I would say, the fact that those provisions have been improved is also a very nice addition. First of all, you have the intra-EU mobility for business activities. It's nice to see that you have a list of business activities listed in the directive, which EU blue card holders can exercise in another EU member state without the need for a separate work authorization. However, I have always been fan to say, why not adding in the EU blue card scheme what we call the so-called case law van der Els, that EU blue card holders can provide services in another member state without the need to obtaining a work authorization in another member state, and saying that in addition, that, and for those activities that do not qualify as service provisions, that they could fall under business activity. Because now you have still member states that do not necessarily recognize the service provision. And of course, the business activity is still, I would say, limited to meetings and trainings and marketing activities. A second point is, of course, the nice to have that the EU blue card holder can move to another EU member state after 12 months of work in the first member state to work and reside there, to take up an highly qualified job over there. It's unfortunate that, as in the proposal, the first proposal, that they couldn't start working immediately, but the 30 days, we can live with it. And nice thing to have as well is that the family members can join, that they have access to the labor market. That another thing in the intra-EU mobility is the assimilation for the EU long-term residence permit of the residents of under national highly skilled schemes. It's also a nice one, especially now that we are in the revision of the EU long-term directive, so we could take that into account to make sure that there the intra-EU mobility can also be enhanced, and we take that with us. So overall, I would say whether we now will be able to attract much more talent than ever before, we don't know, but it's a good step. I mean, it's a step in the good direction, that's for sure. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your point of view, and we understood indeed that you are really more positive than negative about the new blue card. Before entering into question time, I will ask Silvio, who is certainly getting more and more nervous, to make a comment if he wants to answer to what has been said.
Thanks, Philippe, for giving the floor. No, I'm not nervous. I'm just optimistic, as Joe is optimistic about the results, the future results of the blue card, as we all are. I'm also optimistic about the match. But besides that, I mean, it was well, we of course I knew already the positions and the history from the side of the Parliament and the Council. And it was interesting to hear, but it was even more interesting for me to hear the position of someone that is outside the institution, that works to support the migration of the migration process of talents to the EU, to see that this is a good step forward. And indeed, we believe that that this will be, we hope and we believe that this will bring more talent, and it will be easier for highly qualified workers to come to the EU. But also, as Céline said, we believe that this is a signal that still the EU can work on harmonizing legal migration, can work on making more efficient legal migration, to make legal migration normal, as our commissioner says most of the time. The adoption of the blue card is really a first step. The Commission will come up with new proposals, new legislative proposals on legal migration by the end of the year. As it was also mentioned, there will be a revision of the directive on long-term residents, and a proposal for a revision of the single permit directive, where again we would like to continue this step-by-step approach of improving our rules to improve really the admission conditions and rights of third-country nationals who come here to the EU to work and to contribute to our societies, and with the aim of integration, of course. So again, the blue card, great first step towards an improvement in the EU legal migration policy, and we are working towards that.
Thanks a lot, Silvio. To open the question time, I allow myself to ask two quick questions. First of all, when I have on the agenda of my course in this university legal migration, and I speak about the blue card, I always ask my students, after having explained the definition of a highly skilled worker, and in a nutshell, the core of a highly skilled worker is a high level studies degree of 3 years, I always ask them, are you highly qualified? And many of them start a bit to laugh because they say, well, I'm not highly qualified. I am super, super highly qualified because I have not a BA, but I have a master. Some of them say, no, 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 I don't. I have 2 masters. And even some of them say, well, why should I do then a PhD? Because then there will be no words to describe my qualifications. So I always wonder, what do you think about the definition? Is that definition not, is the definition of the directive appropriate to describe highly skilled workers, or is it too large? And if it is too large, does it not explain the difficulties, in particular for member states to adopt this directive? And I even heard some members of the parliament saying, well, we would like to enlarge as much as possible the definition of highly skilled workers because we will have nothing on the agenda for labor migration. And then I wonder, would it not have been, well, is this an appropriate definition of a highly skilled workers? If you take EU law compared to the OECD standards or the standards in the world. And no, that's my main question, actually.
I can say a few words since you mentioned the Parliament. I mean, clearly for the Parliament, there was this idea that since there's no other instrument to attract, you know, lower skilled and middle skilled workers, you know, why not enlarging as much as possible? So the question of the definition was not such a big issue because I think I mean maybe not for all groups, of course, but at least for the rapporteurs, there was nothing against enlarging as much as possible, and not and there was perhaps ideologically also something against having such privileged position for highly skilled workers. So on the side of the Parliament, I think that was voluntary and that it was kept open. And we would have liked to go further in recognizing the skills as equal to diplomas, actually.
What I can mention, this was a very difficult point for member states. There are very different traditions. There are very different approaches to the labor market. For instance, I have a background in internal market in the Commission, for instance. So I have that idea that companies can decide themselves what they need. And so if a company considers that that person that has not a master or even did not complete his or her bachelor is a highly qualified person, and this company wants to pay the salary that is in the salary threshold, why should an immigration authority go and say, no, this person is not skilled enough? But this is really personal perspective. I think it's shared by, I would say, maybe one member state, maybe 2, among the 25 that apply this legislation. There are very different traditions. So what we pushed, it was not our idea, I have to say. It was not the Portuguese presidency idea. It came from the Commission and was already pushed by the Germans. This idea of the skills in the ICT sector were easier to sell because the ICT sector has several ways of certifying qualifications of people outside the university framework. So there are systems, I don't know, I'm not an expert on that, but there's something that for most member states was more accepted. But for instance, we pushed that for this mandatory recognition of ICT skills or professional experience. We would accept that the person would have 3 years of experience. which is not in the blue card, because the blue card as it is now gives this option, is a make clause that member states can recognize skills or professional experience, but after 5 years. And I have to tell you, it was a nightmare to convince some member states about the 3 years, because for some member states, less than 5 years is nada. So, and one member state that Céline knows well was the case. So there is very much. Then there we had another member state. I think it was Romania or Bulgaria. They said, "Oh, we had a meeting with the rectors." I said, "Oh, you had a meeting with the rectors?" Yes, and they are not happy with the 3 years, and we cannot go against the rectors. They said, when we come to the rectors, you know, the magnificent rectors, how can we go? So there's really a very different perspectives, very national perspectives on this. To say, I also have doubts. Sometimes people have masters, and of course they are highly qualified, but maybe they will not. I have a daughter who she's a visual artist. She's a designer, and I'm sure that she has 2 masters, and I'm sure that she would not have the salary threshold to come as a blue card to the EU. So what is this? This is what we could get. It's not perfect, but it is what we could get. We got the 3 years experience. We got ICT, which I think would be a big part of the people coming, where there are shortages coming to the EU, to these jobs that do not have a formal qualification, a diploma. We kept the possibility for member states, like in the current directive, to recognize professional experience in other sectors. Only they can give them the blue card in their internal system, but they cannot, this person will not be able to use the mobility provisions, because, or will only be able if the second member states always applies this. For instance, Spain was very much decided in Luxembourg to apply this to all sectors. I think the Netherlands also. But, well, let's say, like colleagues said, it is a first step. Let's see if we can then create a bit more of trust among member states and break a bit these traditions and go for it. Oh, and another thing, there are member states that have good recognition systems and others who never spoke about this internally. So that's very different also from member state to member state.
Thanks a lot. Well, if I turn my question, if I complete it or turn it in the other way, is that if the definition is or not too large, would there be a need for the EU to have a scheme for the cream of the cream, the top of the tops?
So, I mean, in the end, what has been said about EU Blue Card, it's true that in the end, it's an employer-sponsored scheme. So it's the employer that says, this is the individual that I would like to employ. So it's not the scheme that should restrict the possibility for the employer to at least decide whether that individual matches the needs in that company. And I think that overall there is a quite good consensus that I would say 3 years of higher educational qualifications is highly skilled. On the other hand, you made a very good point, and we had some discussions as well on okay, should Europe to some extent create an elite scheme, okay, that you say we attract the crème of the la crème. Now, there have been some discussions on the creation of that talent pool, and that's something totally different than an employer-sponsored scheme. It's about the scheme saying, hey, maybe let's bring people, let's try at least to select people that we think that we would like in Europe to employ, okay? Select them based on criteria that is not only maybe, I would say, the degrees, but could also be the languages, requirement, a professional experience, a trade-off between different, what we call points that could come into play. Now, that pool, that was a proposal, I think, from the OECD, saying we create that pool, and then in the end, in the pool, that does not necessarily give those people access to the labor market, but we give to the employers a pool of people they can more easily recruit from. And that was an idea that I liked as well, because then in the end you can to some extent promote the EU to the best of the best, and maybe in that sense also saying maybe we create the Silicon Valley and you know, in Europe, and let's go and put a focus on these or these types of skills or degrees. So yeah, I think there is a possibility to combine both, but maybe not doing the crème of the crème in the EU Blue Card scheme, but a separate type of attraction of those people.
Thank you very much. Silvio, as long as you accept to stay with us, do you have a comment, a quick one, it's also in your interest, to about this question?
Yeah, no, but thanks a lot, Philippe. Actually, I mentioned before that the Commission will continue to legislate or to propose legislation on legal migration. But what I forgot to mention, and it's good that Joe mentioned the talent pool, is that together with this legislative package at the end of the year, the Commission will also look at the feasibility of develop such EU talent pool. It will not be a legislative proposal. It will be a communication from the Commission setting out the options to develop such EU talent pool. But this is an idea that we know that many stakeholders like. It's difficult to definitely to implement at EU level and an interest, an expression of interest systems as there are in other OECD countries like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, because of course we don't have a single EU migration system, single EU migration authorities, single EU labor market. We have still a fragmentation of all those systems, but still we really want to see whether to what extent we can build an EU talent pool, so a pool of talents from outside the EU that show their interest in working in the EU, where employers can find those talents, so we can match the two elements. How to do that? It's of course a big question. This is why we are doing now a feasibility study, but we see this as a possible outcome, definitely a policy tool, important policy tool that the Commission will put forward in the next year. It will not be easy, but it will be part of this approach to improve the efficiency of the legal migration, and in this case of labor migration, and the objective of attracting talents to the EU.
Thank you very much, Silvio. We still have 15 minutes for remarks or questions from the audience. Let us first ask our technical team if there are reactions or questions from the people online.
Yes. There is one question from Kirsten. So please, Kirsten, I give you the floor.
So, okay, I try my best and I say a good evening from East Germany. And this is another person from the practical side, because I'm working in the National Business Development Agency in Thuringia, which is East Germany, and we like Bulgaria in a demographic special situation. That means we are in a strong situation to attract persons coming to Germany, especially to East Germany. And we have a lot of good job offers, but our structure is that we are not in the need for academic, highly qualified. And similar to the asylum situation, we are afraid of the second movement, means that we are very happy if someone is coming to East Germany, and then it's a job of the companies to be attractive enough to make the person to stay. So my question is, we are really happy to have the blue card, because this is a good instrument to make Germany attractive. But and on the it's a very German perspective. I know that we need this not academic qualified. We need the skilled persons. And what is the idea? How could we improve this? I know in the former version, we had the idea if someone can present 5 years experience, this person could be able to be recognized as highly skilled, not academic. And I suppose not only East Germany, some areas in Europe also are interested to attracting persons to come. We don't expect them to stay for a long time. We not expect someone to stay 5 years or so. So to make marketing for the EU, it could be an idea to say we attract persons not highly skilled, but skilled, no doubt about being skilled. Because the current system, at least in Germany, means that we have such a complicated, it's a German problem, I know, to recognize skills that most of the people say, thanks a lot. No, we won't. It's a German issue, I know. But this is just, I would like what you expect, what in the future could be a solution for a not academic skilled person, that they see Europe is attractive. Thank you for your frank and informative podium. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for that question. Let's collect some others if they are. Do we have another question online? No? Yes?
No, but I have a question myself.
Okay.
The representative of the European Parliament mentioned that there was a proposal to link the Blue Card Directive with asylum seekers, so to promote the employment of highly skilled asylum seekers and refugees who are already in Europe. What happened with this proposal, and what do the other panelists think about it? Does it have any future? And maybe also, has there been any proposal to link resettlement and highly skilled migration?
Okay, thanks a lot for that specific question. There is another one. Here, we need the microphone to allow persons online to listen and hear.
Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. Since the refugees and asylum seekers are entitled to move from being refugees and asylum seekers to this blue card, if I understood it right. My question is, to what extent those asylum seekers and refugees are at the risk of losing their rights in case of maybe economic crisis or something? Would they be at the risk of being deported, or we would like have more Gastarbeiter, guest workers? Again, I mean, like what happened. It would be really nice to have like more explanation. Temporary workers. Yeah, this is like the second question about the temporary.
So thank you very much for this very specific question, which is a bit outside the scope of this debate, but we will try to answer, because this is actually what happens if a protected person change of status, to what happens then to the refugee status, for instance. Another remark or question? No? Okay. So I propose then that our speakers who want to answer do it by being really brief and going straight to the point. You had, of course, a question directed immediately to you.
Yes, on asylum seekers, that was in the position of the Parliament with regard to the blue card. We wanted that asylum seekers could have access to the blue card, but this has not been accepted by the other negotiating parties. So it's not in the final text. For refugees, on the contrary, it is in the final text, refugees and beneficiaries of subsidiary protection. The system is that they do not lose their rights as beneficiaries of international protection. I mean, I can see nodding, maybe the Commission is better to explain this, but the idea is that they get only additional rights. For asylum seekers, what we had put in our position was to kind of freeze the request for asylum while the person would have benefited from the blue card scheme. But again, it didn't work. As for resettlement and the possibility to link resettlement to a highly skilled scheme, and whether it could be the blue card or whatever. There's not really a position yet on this official position from the Parliament, if I'm not mistaken. But still, from the position of the Parliament on the resettlement, well, the proposal which is on the legislative table, negotiating table at the moment, the Parliament is very cautious with this, because resettlement for the Parliament has to remain a tool to protect vulnerable people and to make sure that this is linked to international protection. It shouldn't be transformed into a scheme to attract skilled people. Resettlement is really for international protection and making sure that people who need international protection have a safe way to reach Europe. So our position so far is not to mix the two. We see a danger there. Thank you.
Okay, I propose not to dig more into this link between asylum and migration, because that's another complicated debate. So unless the other speakers really want to say something very briefly.
Maybe to the lady from Germany?
To the lady from Germany, yes, please.
Yeah,
we should not forget.
Just to say to the colleague from East Germany, just through your issue on what you call the secondary movement was very much something that the German delegation was worried about, notably in what regards the salary threshold. I have to say that Germany was one of the member states that were very strict on not enlarging the list of professions other than ICT. I guess because it's easier to recognize these skills than in other professions. But however, what I would, if you work for business representation, I would very much advise you to get in touch with your national, your federal authorities. We are starting in a few months the transposition process, and the directive gives a lot of options. Gives options in what refers to salary threshold. As we referred, Fragomen just said that it is a bit disappointed that this difference between 1 and 1.6 is quite large, but member states can go for the 1. And for instance, Germany was very supportive of the derogation to have lower threshold for professions in shortage. So I guess they will implement this. It's a may clause, as also was referred to here. I'm not so sure about students. They were not so clear, but go on. It's time now to go and lobby your authorities.
Thanks a lot for that answer. Other comments? Really burning comments? No? Okay. If there are no other questions, I propose, and we are right on time, 1 minute even before the timing, to close this debate here. I really thank all the speakers for having accepted to participate to this debate. And actually, when I listened to you, Mrs. Carvalho, at the end, I say to myself, well, it's a miracle that we have this blue card directive, and you may even wonder why it has not been blocked in the council. Is there something in the institutional game that at the end is pushing member states to accept a compromise with the European Parliament. An interesting question for about the functioning of the European Union in general. So I leave it here. Tomorrow morning, I remind everybody that we have an appointment, but online, so you will not be that much in a hurry, at 8:30 with Tineke Strik from the European Parliament, who is going to tell us her opinion about the pact and what's happening in the European Parliament. So don't stay too late tonight, and see you tomorrow morning, at least virtually at 8:30. Have a good evening, and good luck, Silvio, even if it's hard to say this as a Belgian.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the interesting debate. And indeed, see you next year, because there will be no football competition. So Philippe, you will not have any competition with your summer schools debates, which are always very interesting. So thanks a lot.